Earlier, Mr. Domingo wrote, quote, "America needs another Vegas event," unquote, referring to the 2017 mass shooting in Las Vegas that killed 59 people. Mr. Domingo repeatedly spoke about becoming a martyr, and at one point he said he would pledge allegiance to ISIS if they managed to create a presence in the United States. The criminal complaint describes how the FBI learned of Mr. Domingo's online support for violent jihad and his aspirations to conduct a terrorist attack in the Los Angeles area. In response, the JTTF introduced an undercover source who had a series of meetings with Mr. Domingo and recorded conversations to document his plans. The terror plot culminated with plans to bomb innocent people, causing dozens of deaths and serious injuries. As detailed in the criminal complaint, over the past week, Mr. Domingo finalized his plans and took specific steps to implement the terrorist plot. He drove to multiple stores to purchase the nails that were to be placed inside the IEDs and made sure they were delivered to the purported bomb maker, further offering to buy additional parts for the IEDs if needed. He inspected remote control devices that he hoped could be used to detonate the bombs from a distance. He even considered a backup plan to target another political rally in the case that the primary target in Long Beach was canceled or delayed, even as he lamented that the backup site was in an open location, which would minimize the impact of the blast. According to court documents, Mr. Domingo carefully considered implementing the plan, specifically saying he wanted to sleep on it for a few days. He then gave the final go-ahead last Thursday, and the dummy bombs were delivered Friday evening during a final meeting with the two undercover operatives. Mr. Domingo received instructions on how to detonate the devices he believed to be bombs, and then he drove with the two purported Confederates to Long Beach, where they walked around the area of the planned rally to find places to plant the bombs where crowds would likely gather in order to inflict the maximum number of deaths. He was arrested shortly thereafter. This case demonstrates the value of the Joint Terrorism Task Force and the cooperative efforts of federal and local law enforcement agencies. Diligent work by the FBI was the first step in uncovering and ultimately disrupting a terrorist plot that had the potential to cause significant bloodshed. From there, all levels of law enforcement worked together to uncover and disrupt a plot that sought to do significant damage to the people of the United States. While we always have to remain vigilant, we can all sleep a little bit better knowing that the FBI and our local law enforcement agencies are working around the clock to keep us safe. We owe an enormous debt of gratitude to all of our law enforcement officers for stopping this terrorist in his tracks. Thank you, and at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Special Agent in Charge, Ryan Young.
Hello, my name is Ryan Young. I'm the Special Agent in Charge of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Thanks for joining us here today. This is a good day for law enforcement. Too often, police officers and agents are responding to attacks on vulnerable groups, whether they're innocently attending a concert, attending classes, or praying in their respective houses of worship. It's not inconceivable that I'd be standing here today, beginning my remarks by offering condolences to victims of a horrific attack, but not today. This thwarted attack can be attributed to the excellent law enforcement efforts by many departments assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. I'd like to say up front on behalf of all the partners in the JTTF that we have no information suggesting there is any known or credible threat to Southern California. For the past month or so since establishing that Mr. Domingo posed a credible threat to any number of targets, we have conducted surveillance around the clock, thoroughly investigated and shared intelligence with our partners. Investigators expertly crafted an undercover scenario to obtain evidence and to safely take Domingo into custody. Well, we can't discuss all of the aspects of this case at this time because of the ongoing investigation. I can tell you that you can be proud of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. and the law enforcement professionals at all levels of the government who collectively reached successful conclusion. Some of the partners who contributed to a great deal of resources join me up here on the podium today. They were partners in this case from inception and contributed significant resources to resolve this investigation. Some of the unsung people in cases like this are the line agents and detectives, the bomb technicians, surveillance teams, technical teams, analysts, and the many others who manage the various moving parts. Since the minute the JTTF established a credible threat to the defendant's intentions, we covered him 24/7. At no time were we in the dark. We thoroughly investigated as the undercover case was built and sought evidence of any potential assistance he may be receiving, physically, financially, or otherwise. I'd like to speak briefly about the motivation. While there is a great deal of detail in the criminal complaint that will inform you, I will point out that we are continuing to process and exploit his digital media and conducting interviews of associates close to him. Through the process, we'll paint a clearer picture of what motivated him, but this time we believe he was conducting an attack to weaken the United States and retaliate against Americans for what he perceived to be violence incurred by U.S. actions around the world. In addition, the defendant expressed a desire to retaliate for the New Zealand attack. The defendant claimed he would swear allegiance to ISIS if they formed in the United States and praised the leader of ISIS, al-Baghdadi. Domingo, in recorded conversations with the source, talked about attacking churches, Jews, police, and military officers. It's not always simple to put an ideology into a distinct category, particularly when you're dealing with an alleged criminal behavior and, in many cases, a perverted view of the world and a twisted interpretation of religion. In closing, I'd like to provide an update on the investigation. Following the arrest Friday evening by the FBI SWAT team, investigators conducted a search of the subject's residence and vehicle. During the search, 3 of the known firearms belonging to the subject were located, including a Century Arms Wassenaar arrangement, AK-47 style rifle, a Tulski Karavan SKS semi-automatic rifle, and a Zastava M48 bolt-action rifle. Additionally, JTTF investigators found ammunition, high-capacity magazines, and numerous large fireworks. These items were seized as part of the digital evidence, and the fireworks were turned over to the special agent bomb technicians, and the firearms were turned over to FBI firearms instructors for further analysis. We're releasing a photograph of Domingo in the event anyone has information that might assist the JTTF in this investigation. Domingo was an active duty U.S. Army infantry, assigned to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and then spent time in the military. He was deployed to Afghanistan for 4 months in the fall of 2012. He is 26 years of age and a resident of Reseda. Agents have reviewed online posts in which Domingo described his support for violent jihad and his aspiration to conduct an attack in the Los Angeles area. Anyone with information relative to the allegations we're announcing today is urged to contact the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We can be reached 24 hours a day at 310-477-6565. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Chief Michael Moore of the Los Angeles Police Department.
Thank you, Ryan. And to U.S. Attorney Hanna, I stand here as a member of the local law enforcement network of the fabric of Los Angeles, of men and women of local law enforcement that finds it not just a privilege, but an honor to work alongside our federal and state counterparts. Today is an example of a number of things, one of which is the complexity of the violence in which we deal with. Secondly is that the framework that our government has put together in the aftermath of 9/11 is working, that the investment in agencies sharing information, working together towards the common goals of keeping our community safe, rely upon an openness and a willingness to partner that I'm proud of here in Los Angeles, I believe can operate without peer. I'm also thankful today to rest a little easier that this plot was not just interrupted, but that we'll bring a man to justice who've tried to inflict such pain and such injury and such just outright hate here in our communities. And that's in the backdrop of seeing instances of hate against every community of this great United States. By twisting an ideology, by twisting an application of rationalization or of justification. And so while the network today of our Joint Terrorism Task Force, each law enforcement partner in concert with our U.S. Attorney, has successfully identified and will bring to justice this individual, what I will leave you with is that is only one part of any solution. Because we know that there are others out in our communities that will find some rationale and some twisted manner to go out and act in a manner similar to this man. And what is really needed is a continued vigilance of each of our communities, of each of our houses of faith, of each American to know that this is not television. This is not something in Hollywood. This is a reality in the time in which we live. See something, say something is not spying on your fellow American. See something, say something does not mean that you're being prejudiced or you're somehow accusing someone from some bias that is unwarranted. See something, say something recognizes that in today's time, with instances in which individuals lose track of what is right and what America stands for, and they launch off down a rabbit hole that will deliver violence to innocent individuals, requires a public to step forward and demands a public to work cooperatively and willingly with law enforcement so that we can bring resources to bear and protect all of our communities. I'm proud of the men and women that from LAPD as well as the Sheriff's Department in Long Beach and other local law enforcement that work so tirelessly to see this case through, and I'm hopeful that we'll not stand here in the future offering condolences for an instance in which we failed to do just this. Thank you.
Great. This time we'll take a few questions.
So, can you tell us where he was posting messages of, when he talked about another American, another Las Vegas event and calling for an execution from the New Zealand mosque attack, and how was it that the FBI then made contact with him and opened up a conversation, dialogue with him, and also and had the FBI not done that, been able to do that, how do you think he would have been able to find other real Confederates to carry out his intention?
Well, we're not going to talk about the specific online forum, but in terms of the contact, I'll defer to the FBI on that.
I was going to say, different chat rooms. He was on different chat rooms, made statements. Yes, I understand. Going back to your question, can you give me the second part?
So, had the Joint Terrorism Task Force under the FBI not been able to make contact with him and sort of intervene with him and engage him, had that not occurred, do you think that he would have really been able to find other real Confederates, people who were able to build bombs for him and deliver bombs?
That's the risk. That's the risk. We don't know what we may miss, but in some of these violent chat rooms, they find a lot of like-minded individuals, and at that point, he could have brought somebody else in, but luckily it was us being vigilant and making contact with them so we could further this investigation.
Okay, calling it a good day in law enforcement. You're hearing a live news conference from downtown Los Angeles. U.S. Attorney's Office holding that news conference to reveal details of a thwarted terror plot that was targeting various locations in Southern California, including, according to some sources, the Santa Monica Pier. They're announcing today the arrest of 26-year-old Mark Stevens Domingo, an Army veteran. He was arrested Friday night after he took a delivery of what he thought was a live bomb from an undercover law enforcement officer posing as a bomb maker, and he is being charged with attempting to provide material support to terrorists. Again, this is a thwarted attempt at targeting several locations in Southern California. He's going to have his first court appearance today at 2 p.m. We're going to continue to stream this live on ABC7.com. Of course, we'll have the very latest on the Los Angeles app, ABC7 Los Angeles app, our Facebook page, and ABC7.com. And, of course, join us for Eyewitness News at 3 o'clock today for all the latest on this investigation. We'll see you then at 3 o'clock.
think the second target he talked about was another similar rally in Huntington Beach.
This was the the anti-sanctuary state one on Saturday.
One Saturday in Long Beach and the other one on Sunday, yes.
Are you particularly linked to ISIS already, or are you investigating that still? And also, do you see his planned attack on the rally or rallies as a direct retribution to Muslims, or do you think that's just kind of a motivation?
As outlined in the criminal complaint, there were a number of motivating factors, one of which was his ideology, the other was the events in New Zealand.
And the first question?
Which was, again?
Have you ruled out links to ISIS?
We have not identified any in the criminal complaint. That's all I'll say.
The affidavit mentioned that he was looking at a variety of places as well, including Santa Monica Pier. It sounds like he was definitely targeting Long Beach. How close was he potentially to some of these other places mentioned in the affidavit?
Well, that's the issue as to when he goes operational. We believe that at the time on Friday, when he picked up the devices and went and scoped out the site to pick locations to plant the devices, that was the time to take him down. He also talked about pulling up next to a police car and shooting and assassinating police officers, and he had weapons to do that.
Was that more, okay, so I guess my question following to that is, was that more in the idea stage or something that he could have pulled off?
He had the weapons, he had the ammunition.
He was nobody's radar screen prior to this. I mean, he didn't have anything at all that would have led you to. I'm sure you get plenty of this type of chat on so-called chat. So nothing in this background. And what was it about what he said that put up all red flags?
All I'll say is that the postings online were violent and talked about retribution and killing people, and that was enough to start the investigation. Yes.
Background, anything?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Can you just explain why this particular charge was brought, and if it's in support of terrorists, who are they? Or do you have to say?
For purposes of this charge, for this criminal complaint, it's sufficient that he identified his ideology and that he was doing it in furtherance of his ideology. We expect the case will be presented to a grand jury, and there may be additional charges at that time.
Do you think he was targeting the groups holding these rallies for a specific political reason, or was he just looking for large crowds to attack? Those are two very different ideologies between the two days.
I don't want to speculate more than other than what's in the criminal complaint at the current time.
Well,
Yes,
then
sir.
along those lines, did you warn the very right, anti-immigrant group not to show up at the Sunday rally? Did you intervene?
There was no danger. We took him off on Friday. He was under arrest on Friday, so there's no danger to the Sunday rally.
How long did he serve in the military? And were there any hints that there may be an issue? Was he dishonorably discharged, or was he honorably discharged?
All I can say is that we know he served in Afghanistan from late 2012 to early 2013 and left the military shortly after that. Other than that, I'm going to refer you to the Department of Defense with respect to his conditions of discharge. Great. Anything else?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Tom will get it to you.
All right.